Dorset in winter, part of the English countryside, developed over the centuries by people who lived off the land, cultivated, preserved and cherished it. As much as any county, it is proud of a rich and productive farming industry, with sheep and corn in the hilly regions, and dairy farming and cattle fattening in the fertile valleys of the rivers. It has a fine record of progressive farming and high production. East Farm, Hammoon, lies here in the Blackmore Vale in North Dorset, 162 hectares of grassland, carrying a dairy herd of 200 accredited British Friesians, 150 followers, and a great variety of wildlife. Over the past 20 years or so, its owner, Angela Hughes, has endeavoured to demonstrate how modern and progressive farming can be combined with practical wildlife conservation. Angela meets regularly with her manager, Bob Edwards, who's also enthusiastic about the idea, to discuss the day-to-day problems. Let's take a quick look at the four main features of East Farm. This is the old railway line, closed in 1966, now an invaluable roadway. There's 2 miles of it. The largest woodland is in the middle of the farm, Tanhill Copse, 7.5 hectares. There are 9 ponds. The largest is by Hammoon Copse and has been restored recently. The other ponds vary in age and size, some providing good shelter for wintering duck. The River Stour is perhaps the most impressive feature of all as it meanders slowly through the vale. Apart from its scenic beauty, it forms a natural boundary for 3 miles and provides a valuable freshwater habitat. So, what makes this farm different? And how does Angela manage to reconcile wildlife conservation with modern farming, to provide for all her livestock and to retain the wide variety of habitat for the plants, insects, birds and mammals that live here too? The farm revolves round the dairy herd, which in winter is confined to its cubicle housing. By mid-April, the grass is growing well, and the fields are firm enough for their first outing. It is an exciting moment for the cows, who show their pleasure in a somewhat skittish manner when they reach the fresh pastures, with a touch of aggression as well. At East Farm, the land provides excellent grazing for the dairy cows, which during the summer are allocated half an acre each on a set stocking system, giving them a large acreage without restriction. The tall hedges with fine oak trees provide shelter from wind and rain. A few weeks after turnout, in early May, the farm is looking at its best. The grass is greener, richer, and more productive than at any other time of the year. The cows are content. They eat as much as they like, and their summer coats show the benefit of good grazing and sunny days. The cow converts grass to milk well, but needs to eat about 150 pounds a day, the weight of an average-sized man, a fair mouthful. So, the farm must produce plenty of high-quality grass to feed the stock in winter and in summer, and thus provide a good living for those who work here. So good management and care of the fields is all important. Beginning in early spring, Emphasis is placed on harrowing and rolling established pastures and lays. And while most reseeding is undertaken in late summer, there are times when patching up is needed. Sometimes root crops are grown for late summer grazing, and sprays, used for weed control, are applied and immediately worked into the soil. Spraying is kept to a minimum on this farm, and great care is taken in cleaning the equipment afterwards. The owner values and retains her 5 miles of hedgerows, not only as field enclosures and shelter for her livestock, but as homes for wildlife. They've suffered badly from Dutch elm disease, and despite extensive work by contractors and farm staff during winter months, not all the dead trees have been cleared. 2/3 of all the hedgerows on the farm are affected, losing over 350 large elms and a multitude of saplings. All this takes time and has to be worked in with other important work during January and February. The effect of the loss of elms on wildlife is devastating and leaves wide ecological gaps that will take a long time to fill. Sadly, 2 more trees go, joining millions like them. These elms are dead, but what of the future? What should be planted to replace the environment that has been lost? Angela is planting a great variety of indigenous trees. Among these are willows and alders in a hedgerow that runs alongside a bridle path. Their growth will not affect farm production, but will provide, in addition to their amenity and ecological value, shelter belts for stock movements and horse riders who are frequently seen on the farm. Financial aid for tree planting is provided by such bodies as the County Council, the Countryside Commission and the Forestry Commission. Voluntary organisations also help. A few elms of little commercial value have been topped and left for hole nesting birds and as roosts, to the benefit of the tawny owl and others. Nest boxes are fixed in some hedgerows to replace the natural nesting sites in the lost trees. In early spring, extensive fencing repairs are often necessary before the fields are occupied, and many hedgerows must be re-fenced, particularly where the dead elms have been removed. Here, in this farm cottage, a barn owl has been encouraged to nest. This declining species of bird is valuable to farmers in controlling small vermin. Where there's water, there's a place for fish, but they don't always arrive in ponds on their own. Here, a supply of carp from the local fish farm arrives by way of the old railway. Their destination, Hammoon Copse Pond. The quality of the water was found to be suitable, and with local water authority approval, Angela has stocked it with 50 fish, 6 to 8 inches long, a mixture of common and mirror carp. These will take some years to mature. No artificial fertilizers are used in this area, and all water draining into the pond is of high quality. Fish like carp and trout in farm ponds have food and sporting value, and such ponds are of benefit to other wildlife. Nearby, alongside the river, trees are being planted to put the finishing touches to an otter haven, which has been established by the Otter Haven Project. A secluded part of the Stour has been chosen where otters have been seen, and Angela is hopeful. This is a dairy farm, and milk is what keeps it going. The 200 Friesians assemble in the collecting yard, and each waits its turn to go into the milking parlour, where a 20-point, rotary abreast milking machine is operated by 2 men. Each cow walks onto a moving platform. Others are washed. The milking clusters are attached. Its number pressed on a computer control box, and its food ration released into a trough in front of it. The milk is not exposed and passes through filters and into the bulk tank. The system reduces milking time to a minimum, and as soon as the cow has been milked and the clusters removed, it is released automatically. It backs out and returns to its grazing area. Autumn and summer are peak times for milk production on this farm, and it provides 1.5 million pints for the housewife every year. A milk marketing board tanker arrives every day to collect the milk. The daily yield is measured and transferred to the tanker. In Britain, through this highly efficient network, the time from farm to doorstep is kept to a minimum. There's a flock of Jacob sheep on the farm. They serve a useful purpose by keeping the small orchards around the buildings tidy and well grazed. They're an attractive sight to visitors and supply meat and wool and a good crop of ewe lambs for sale. Now for a closer look at Tanhill Copse in the centre of the farm. Once a fine oak wood, it was clear felled in 1922, and it now consists of naturally regenerated woodland and has become well known as a fox cover. Angela has been replanting the wood in sections with the aid of a small woodlands grant from the Forestry Commission, so that it can eventually be restored as an oak wood. The first planting of oak, together with Lawson cypress, took place in 1967. The next section was planted in 1974, when oak and larch replaced a stand of diseased ash. Timber from this area was tannalized, that is rock-proofed, and used for gateposts and fencing stakes. Angela has been careful to retain larch in her planting programme, so that a nearby heronry in similar trees can be perpetuated. In the centre of the wood, a small pond provides a very secluded site. Those of you with sharp eyes might just be able to spot this nesting mallard. She sits undisturbed by nearby ablutions. Where larger trees remain, the great spotted woodpecker has found a suitable site and is excavating its nesting hole. It's a familiar bird in British woods and feeds mainly on larvae of wood-boring insects. Two pairs nest here, and since the elms have started to die out, the lesser spotted woodpecker has taken up residence too. A rather inconspicuous little bird, not much bigger than a sparrow. It feeds on the same kind of food as its larger relative. Its nesting hole, seen here in close-up, is in fact more difficult to find, being much smaller than the great spotted woodpeckers. As the woodland is replanted, nest boxes take the place of lost nesting holes. Over 50 have been erected in the wood during the last few years. The nuthatch takes readily to a well-placed box, and the wood provides plenty of food. Early in the year, the herons return to nest. The River Stour is their feeding ground. It supplies a great variety of food, including eels, part of their staple diet. There is little cover for the parent birds when they begin to nest, and with bad weather and marauding crows, the long incubation period of 25 days is fraught with danger. Therefore, a quiet wood is important. After safely hatching, a fledgling period of a further 50 days passes before the young can fly. The summer brings more leaves to the trees and affords greater shade and cover for the herons. But some birds, like the tree creeper below, make full use of the warmth of the sun. Young herons repeatedly return to their nests after taking their first flights, and probably roost on them for some time before finally departing. All kinds of birds inhabit the wood, and their numbers and varieties have been recorded for over 20 years. 50 different species are known to have nested here. Recently, black boxes were fixed, again to replace natural holes in trees that used to contain colonies. Although it's early days to assess the value of the boxes, which have holes on the underside, many species of bats do live on the farm, and Angela is anxious to retain them. From conservation in the wood to conservation of the grass for silage, a vital part of the farming program, because the cutting time is critical and the method of harvesting of great importance. Each year, well over 50 hectares is taken for the first cut. Good teamwork, reliable machinery, the right type of grass, the stage of growth and the weather all determine the quality of silage that ends up in the barn. Mowing and wilting and then picking up with a precision chop machine gets the job done on this farm. Speed is all important, and when delivered to the barn, the grass is quickly consolidated and sheeted down. The Dorset wedge system is practiced, and every effort is made to produce top-quality silage for winter feed. 1,700 tons is stored here from 3 cuts in May, July and September. If good silage is made, less cake has to be bought. Ponds have character, and each is different. This one might well have been filled in when a new drainage scheme was started. Instead, it was deepened and now acts as a sump with an outlet and has kept its original inhabitants. Once ponds have been established, their upkeep is low. This one needed a stock-proof fence, and to improve it further, a few trees and shrubs were planted for cover. Louise, who helps on the farm, is clearing the long grass around them because, like the blackthorn, they need looking after in their early days. In June, the dragonflies begin to show themselves, and among the first are the large red damselflies, found only on this pond. There are 7 other species here, including the banded agrion, the azure damselfly, and the white-legged. On Hammoon, a small pond has been reclaimed, where aquatic plants and dragonflies predominate. Here the southern aishna lays its eggs along the margins of the pond, and another, the common darter, has established itself. The older ponds are larger and offer a completely different habitat. The moorhen can nest here undisturbed and can hide in the adjoining reed bed at the first sign of danger. The reed warbler has also colonized the pond, nesting among Phragmites, the common reed. The river fields are good for dry cows and young stock alike. The old permanent pastures provide the minerals and grass that are necessary for their development, and the sward is thick and not so prone to drought as short-term lays. The River Stour is the responsibility of the Wessex Water Authority, whose duties cover maintenance of rivers, drainage, flood prevention, and control of water pollution. The Stour, classified as very clean, is one of the best coarse fishing rivers in the south of England. Anglers enjoy the peace and relaxation that these waters provide, which are rich in fish and other aquatic life. The Stour at Hammoon offers another fisherman the right habitat for nesting as well as for fishing. High overhanging banks are vital for the kingfisher which makes its home here. But, like others, it's dependent on clean water for its catch. Dragonflies are good indicators of river purity, and many inhabit the river banks and breed within its shallow bays. But not all survive. This spider, by the name of Araneus cornutus, makes light work of such a tasty morsel. Drainage is also the farmer's responsibility, and those farming close to a river with little fall must pay attention to drainage. Ditching, which has to be done regularly to allow free drainage from the fields, is a time-consuming job, and only a few ditches can be cleared each year. Some corners of fields, difficult to cultivate, such as this one, are being fenced out ready for a tree planting scheme. The green woodpecker, which is a familiar bird in open countryside, nests here. Its call is well known. It's the largest of the 3 British woodpeckers and has a powerful bill. Many of the hedgerows on the farm are on high banks, with a ditch system alongside. Kingfishers have been known to nest here and feed on the minnows from the ditch when driven from their usual haunts by summer floods. In this ditch, the water is clear and the food is plentiful. Tree stumps are stark reminders of losses. Willows and alder saplings are beginning to thrive again, though, together with flowering plants and shrubs. The nest boxes, fixed during the winter months, are now occupied. The high banks on which the double hedgerows grow provide cover, as well as breeding places for some of the larger animals. These cubs are enjoying the evening sun. Outside the hunting season, foxes on East Farm are left undisturbed. The trodden highways of deer and other mammals can clearly be seen inside the hedge. Haymaking takes second place to silage here. Some meadow hay is made for the calves, and the slightly coarser hay, seen here, is reserved for young stock. There is little available for the dairy herd. As a background to the noise of the tractor, the familiar sound of the skylark. This pleasing bird fares well in a long-term crop such as hay. The old railway line links both ends of the farm. Access to the fields has been created by the farmer, and on both sides of the old track, the verges and banks display an infinite variety of plants, trees and shrubs. These, in turn, provide food for the wildlife that shelters here. So, the old track, one way or another, has a use all the year round. Some cowslips in this small area is a remnant of bygone farming. Primroses, bluebells, and the olive purple orchid, followed later by midsummer flowers and shrubs. The more unusual is always a welcome sight. This broad-leaved helleborine found under brambles on the embankment. Over 60% of all flowering plants on the farm can be seen on this line. Grasses and flowering plants are left to complete their life cycle undisturbed, providing food on which butterflies and their larvae can feed. On warm, sunny days, this sheltered cutting in its miscellany of plants brings out a variety of species in large numbers. The small tortoiseshell, a peacock on field scabious. Of the 30 different kinds of butterfly here, 23 are seen on the railway line. Blackberrying is attractive, and East Farm has its share of human visitors, but insects have the first taste. The lure of the flower, the fruit, and even the leaves knows no bounds when the sun is shining and the days are long and warm. And speckled wood, intent on the sweet nectar. A bee, and even a bush cricket in the undergrowth below, cautiously feeling its way across the leaves. When insects are flying around, wasps, flies or bees, spiders will be there too, especially when a rich harvest is to be gathered. A web, strategically placed, can reap a succulent reward. The arrival of the veterinary surgeon is a weekly event on the farm. This handling yard, recently added, has made life much easier for stockmen and vet alike. Cows can be moved, checked and released with a minimum of stress, and the task in hand, on this occasion of pregnancy diagnosis on some dairy cows, is accomplished without fuss. In August, the large slurry lagoon, containing over 500,000 gallons of liquid manure, has to be emptied and spread on those fields due to be reseeded. With outside contractors and all available farm staff, every effort is made to spread it in the shortest possible time. The ground is dry now and the weather fine, thus minimizing the risk of pollution to the ditches and the river. And it's important to be sensitive about this. It's the last time that the lagoon will be emptied before the installation of a new system, and the muck spreading must be completed before the cows go into winter cover and start producing it all over again. Complete containment, more flexibility and better use of slurry prompted Angela to invest in the erection of this 4-tier slurry silo. It has a holding capacity of nearly 300,000 gallons and needs to be completed quickly. And beyond the silo, work is apace ploughing in the slurry. August is the best time for ploughing and reseeding on the farm. The soil breaks up easily. A following of gulls search for wireworms and leather jackets exposed by the plough, a familiar sight and welcome to any farmer. To get the best grass lay next spring, careful preparation and consolidation of the seedbed becomes important. Straw for winter feeding and bedding is brought from a nearby farm and baled and hauled by farm staff. A full barn is essential to cater for the needs of 350 animals for 6 winter months. At this time of year there is no grass left for the dairy herd, and a field of turnips provides alternative grazing for a short time before they come into their winter quarters. The warm summer days are over. The fields are empty, the hedgerows are silent, and the land must now rest. The bright green of spring has changed to the more sombre shades of autumn and winter, a time for reflection and remembering. We've talked about the farm as a producer of food and as an employer, a living community to be treasured. We've looked at the land and its features, the ponds, the river, the railway, the coppices, and there's no doubt that they're cherished by the owner. But are they necessary? Worth conserving? In fact, is conservation worthwhile? An increasing number of farmers think so, and so does Angela. That's why she's trying to conserve and improve what she already has, and so provide a wide diversity of habitat for the greatest number of living things. From the smallest to the largest, for it seems sound common sense to preserve what exists and which has taken millions of years to evolve. Most of her conservation work is integrated into the farming program with little or no extra effort. With a bit of know-how, not difficult to acquire, much can be done, even on the smallest of farms. It's not easy to place a value on the benefit we get from birds, trees, mammals, and all the rest. But if we ignore conservation, if we farm unheedingly, what will happen? Will we cause irrevocable damage? For the loss of any living thing should be regarded with much concern. Should we not show that we farmers care?